Okay, so picking up at where we left off from the last video, we talked about how to embed a literal string in our expression. Just to show you what I mean, we had the flat file connection manager. You can see the expression that we assign here. And the Visual Studio is smart enough in 2008 to automatically update that information here. Okay, cool. So here's what we don't want to do. What we don't want to do is actually type in the expression. We would like this to be stored in a variable. So we don't want to have this information buried deep within our package. We would like it to be obvious. So let's make that a variable. And I want to show you the syntax for working with variables. So here's what I'll do. I'm actually going to go out back to my control flow because I want to make a package level variable so that it's visible at the package level. If you're unsure about scoping of variables and how that works, I would direct you to go watch one of the earlier videos in this chapter about how scoping works in SSIS for variables. So I'm going to call this file name, and I'm going to make it a type string, and I'm going to put in a value, I don't know, my data. And I'm going to then make another one called extension, and it's going to be a string, and it's going to be .txt. And then I'm going to put another one called path to file, and it's also a string, and it's the C. So obviously you could see this is going to require some cobbling together of the different variables. So we're going to use an expression-based syntax to create a single, what we ultimately want is cmydata.txt as the destination file name. We're just going to have to concatenate these three strings to accomplish that. So let's do it. I'll ask you the same question that I asked you in the last video. Of these two, the flat file destination or the flat file connection manager, which one decides the output file name? The connection manager. So that's the one you need to change at runtime. So let's do that. I click it. A couple of different ways to do this. I would right click and go to properties, being the easiest way. You can see our connection string. I click here and it brings up the same expression builder that we saw before. But notice now we have a variables tab. Well, we also have lots of mathematical functions, things you can drag and drop. So all you got to do is just drag and drop them onto the surface, and then you can kind of see their syntax. So here's what I'll do. I'll just take a look. You can see we have all of the different variables. You could see here's our user path to file and our file name up at the top, and I think up above there was the extension. So here's what you do. You simply drag and drop. And look at the syntax here. So that is the syntax to use a variable. The syntax is like this: at, open brackets, namespace, colon, variable name. So like if we wanted to use system username, this is in the system namespace. So we would say at system, username. And here's a question for you. Is the expression syntax case sensitive? That's the wrong question. It's a trick question because variable names are what is case sensitive. So you need to make sure that you get the case correct here, because if you don't, then you won't be referencing a proper variable. Okay, so it's just, I find it, I could type this in, but I find it easier to just drag and drop. That way I don't ever have to worry about misspellings or improper casing. So what we have to do is we have to string together the path to the file name, which is somewhere up here, and the extension. So what's our concatenation character? It is the plus sign. So plus the file name plus the extension. And so our final expression, this is our SSIS expression syntax, looks like this. And when we evaluate the expression, we want it to say C colon my data dot txt because it will pick up the values of those variables. So let's just do that. Let's evaluate the expression. Does it come back with what we want? Yes, sirree, Bob. So we say OK. And that's how we can easily cobble together some pretty dynamic packages by changing things with variables and expression syntax. And there's the mydata.txt file. So we've changed the property at runtime. Now we did, in this particular one, we actually changed the connection manager value. Let's go back to our expression here. And just before I leave, notice that the expression shows the value of the variables, but the connection string shows the last executed value. So when we click save, this will actually have C colon my data, C colon backslash my data dot text, but it's because those are the values of the variables. And I did want to show you how to concatenate and do some other things that you could do up here. So right here, we're just pulling these together. Let's just talk about replacing this one. So let's yank this out and say .dat. And this just shows you how you can combine usage of variables with literal string content. You could come up here and do other things as well. There's many different string functions here. So we could take, for example, let's take an upper function just to show you some of the functions. You know, these are not difficult functions here. They're fairly basic. I guess I can't resize that. But like you could do substring, trim, upper, which is what I'm going to do for this one. So I'm going to take the upper. So I drag it, and you can see that it simply you pass in the character expression you want. And I'm just going to take my variable for the extension, and I'm going to put it right in there. And so let me go delete the original file. I did already. I say OK, just to make sure you can see that syntax here. We're passing the value of the variable to a function. And I say OK, run this now. And I actually need to go, I think, turn on, no, it had it. I didn't know if I had the extensions turned on. But that's it. It's pretty simple to work with variables and create really, really dynamic package situations. So I tell you what, we're going to stop right here, and let's come back on the next video and go a little bit deeper with what we can do with expressions and connection properties and things like that at runtime.